A synagogue gets shot up by a person screaming, "Death to all Jews." This is Trump's America, and we have to take it back on November 6th. J Pork's podcast, exclusively on Least Coast Radio.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Representing Staten Island.
These Staten Island boys are no joke. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
We got one goal for the next 2 months. One goal for 2018. And that's to take back the House. And we're only going to do that by going out and voting.
Representing Staten Island.
I mean, I know the civil rights movement didn't exactly end racism, but I thought we were further along than this.
Representing Staten Island.
It's a known fact that the reason I don't have any friends is solely because I'm a liberal who cares about other people and doesn't want to see brown people and women suffer at the hands of old, rich, white men who have been in power for way too long.
Representing Staten Island.
Nazis? Bad. Free press? Good. The most dangerous thing you can do is sit back and think that America has no chance of ever turning into an autocracy or some sort of authoritarian regime when you have a fascist regime on the rise right now, unchecked by Congress, which makes November the most important election of our lives.
Representing Staten Island.
J Pork's Least Coast Radio dies in your house. J Pork's podcast. We must resist or we won't exist. Taking it back in November. Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Hey yo, what is the word, people? Welcome back into another action-packed edition of the J Porks podcast. I am J Porks, with me as always on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled I am J Porks, with me as always on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled podcast machine. Every week is the ever-popular nobody who is finally learning how to fade out the music instead of just stopping it off. It's funny, I've said that well-oiled podcast machine 248 times, and that is the first time that I have slipped up on it. What goes on, peeps? Happy Sunday. bringing this to you on Sunday because that's the new day the Jay Porks podcast comes to you. That's what I decided. Nothing I could do. Well, there is something I could do, but this is what I've chosen to do. Guys, this is hate crimes galore. On the latest episode of Dies in Your House, we cover the MAGA bomber. Hashtag MAGA bomber. That's what he is. He's not a random person who is crazy and mentally ill and sick and deserves special... No. He is a Trump fan who listens to the Trump dog whistles and goes and commits crimes. The same way Trump said, the Russians, if you're listening, please hack Hillary Clinton's emails. That is my alarm going off because I am recording this at 4:30 in the morning. You might wonder why I'm already awake and my alarm's going off. That happens to me a lot. I'm a crazy person. So anyhow. So Sayok Caesar Sayok is in custody and he's charged with a bunch of counts and facing 56 years in prison for mailing pipe bombs to politically powerful Democrats, prominent Democrats. I would encourage you to go to East Coast Radio and listen to the episode of Dies in Your House titled MAGA Bomber. MAGA Bomber. Just say it. Just keep saying it aloud. Because this is... The MAGA bomber is something that comes from this climate, which is created at the top by somebody that literally holds rallies and incites mobs every single night. And if you thought that stuff like this wasn't going to happen, then you weren't paying attention. Then you weren't paying attention in class when they taught you about propaganda. We're going to talk a little bit about propaganda later on the thread count. But listen. You know, as you see, like if you follow me on Twitter at JPorks, you'll notice the numbers next to my name, 67680. And you might notice that that's not a birthday, that that's not a date. And you probably ask yourself, what is that? Well, that's the numbers that the Germans tattooed, that the Nazis tattooed on my Aunt Brunya's arm when she went into concentration camp along with my grandparents and the rest of my family on my father's side. So, yes, I'm Hebrew. And I know, some of you don't like that. Not some of you, but there are people in the world that don't like that. And it's not cool. We should all everybody should be getting along. But in Trump's America, that's not the goal. The goal is not to get along. The goal is to isolate yourself from things. Isolate yourself from people that are a different color than you, from people that practice a different religion than you, from people that go to different schools than you, live in different places. It's this isolationism that is the foundation of, you know, America's policies right now under the Republican-led Congress, which we could change on November 6th if you go out and vote. But in Pittsburgh, 11 people were killed in a synagogue shooting when a gunman opened fire at the Tree of Life Congregation Synagogue Saturday morning. Local officials have said that 11 people died, 6 are injured, including 4 police officers. The suspect is 46 years old and he's in custody, and I will not be saying his name on the podcast. So, a bris was going on when someone came into a synagogue and shot 11 people. When is the hate gonna stop? When is the hate gonna subside? When are people going to realize that no matter what God you pray to or don't pray to, that we are all not only human beings with the same intestines, the same organs, the same, not the same blood, but, like, humans are all one and the same, right? When are we gonna learn that this shit is not okay? And it's not, listen, same thing with the church shooter. Now, we have schools, we have churches, synagogues getting shot up. And I know I'm not the kind of person that likes to say, oh, can you believe what Trump said, and then rebuke it? But, like, they asked him about it, and A, he went on with his rally tonight anyway, that night, Saturday night. And B, he said if they had armed guards inside, it would have ended up differently. Wait a second. So now, like, not only do we want to give teachers guns, but we want to give rabbis guns and priests guns? Like, when you go up for the little wafer thing, is it the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the assault rifle? In the kneeler, I don't know what that thing's called, but the thing you kneel on, like, when you pull that down, is there going to be, like, guns there? So, like, just in case someone comes to shoot up a church, we could respond back with fire? This whole idea of guns stopping guns. You know what stops guns from killing people? You know what stops guns from murdering innocent people? Background checks, gun reform, stuff like that. That's what stops people. Not giving everyone a gun. Giving everyone a gun is only going to lead to, and 2 + 2 is 4. I mean, giving people more guns is only going to lead to more deaths. It's so stupid that I have to even, like, do you know how disappointing it is that I have to sit here and say this? This is why you have to vote. Do you want to send your kids to school and risk them getting shot? Either by some gunman or their teacher? Do you want to go to church and have to worry? Do you want to go to shul? Wherever you worship, your mosque, your temple, and you have to worry about some lunatic coming in? You have to check the mail? Like, this podcast is on YouTube. If I see a manila envelope in my mailbox, I am calling the police. I know I'm not prominent, but, the dude might have listened once. It's not cool. This is a dangerous place we live in right now. And it's not going to get less dangerous by having unchecked power given to leaders who think it's okay when journalists get killed in Saudi Arabia with bone saws and they get their bodies dismembered. They actually cleared that with the White House. As long as the rich are getting richer, right? Maybe conservatives want more guns on the street because they have that population control thing, you know? Oh, well, you know, there's not enough for all of us. We need to kill people. You ever heard people talk about population control? It's another one of these conspiracy theories. You know, they think that the government is poisoning you purposely so people can die, so there could be less people. Yeah, I know, crazy. I know, I agree with you, it's crazy. But, I mean, that's what people think. So maybe that's why Republicans are so hell-bent on guns. Guns, guns, guns. It's funny, when the Black Panthers took up arms, the NRA was all for gun control at that point. They were all for, well, everyone can't have a gun. I don't care what the Constitution says. It's weird how that works, isn't it? It's strange. But, I mean, when you go to vote on November 6th, and you really need to, please. Our future depends on it. Seriously. You need to go vote Democrat. Because if you vote Republican, you're voting for your third grade teacher to have a gun. You're voting for your local rabbi to have a gun. Your local priest. You're voting for these people to have to get trained in the art of killing. Now, I'm not much of a believer myself in, you know, fictional stories like the Bible and stuff like that, but if you do believe in that stuff, then things like mass murder shouldn't be your deal. Also, I'm pretty sure that Jesus had a migrant caravan. I'm just saying. Conservative Republicans base all of their hateful views on the good book. They base it all on the Bible. My question to them is, have you read your own literature, or are you just making it up as you go along because you think that that book is so boring that no one's actually going to read it? Well, you didn't count on Catholic school having paras and making Jewish kids go to Mass once a week for 3 straight years. And the only pros of Mass is finding out where all these heavy metal bands got their name from. Lamb of God. It's like, yeah, Randy Blythe, baby, or whatever, I don't know. I don't really listen to Lamb of God. But, like, seriously, every conservative value that they base on the Bible, if you actually go to the Bible, it's not actually what the Bible is telling you. So, that's, I mean, that's the root of it. That's the heart of it. So, I mean, and Democrats are sitting here, and the Democrat line is, we want everyone to practice whatever religion they choose to. That's it. Nobody's saying don't say Merry Christmas. No Democrat is saying don't say Merry Christmas. That is a made-up thing. And for the record, my grandmother freaking loved Christmas. She loved Christmas music and the Christmas spirit in people and people with their giving and maybe if people who celebrated Christmas acted like that all year, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess to begin with as a planet. I'm sorry that I keep stopping my sentence and saying November 6th, but I feel like I'm out of things. If you don't know by now what we gotta do, then we are in some serious trouble. This nation is going to be a lot different on November 7th. And I am hoping that it's better. Got an extended edition of the Thread Count coming up after this quick break. And then we're going to talk about what you need to do until November 6th. Spoiler, turn off the news. Back after this.
Representing Staten Island.
Huh. Jay Porks here. And I know I've been a little busy on this Least Coast radio stuff. Talking about resist, remove, and recreational. But I gotta tell you about one more thing. You should be a Least Coast Radiohead. That's right. And you can become a Least Coast Radiohead just by going to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we have there. There's a low tier, a middle tier, and a high tier. All of those get you bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, and even a chance to interact with me on a personal level over the phone. We could talk about what's going on in this podcast. We could talk about how we are going to flip these seats blue in November. And we are going to vote like this is our final election, because it might be. Patreon.com/JPorks. Become a Least Coast Radiohead and join the resistance. And we are back. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome yourselves to another edition of Jay Porks Presents The Thread Count here on the Jay Porks Podcast. That's right. That's where every week we go through what I'm going to call the threads of the week. There are threads on Twitter. They tell stories. They're from people we trust, whether they're in news media or not. And we got some friends that we usually hit up here on the Thread Count. We usually read stuff from Greg Olear. We usually read stuff from Eric Garland. We read stuff from Dr. Denna Grayson, Alias Vaughn, Lincoln's Bible. All these people are Molly McHugh. Shoutouts to Molly. All these people normally featured on the Thread Count. This week, Kevin M. Cruz made it a couple weeks in a row. That was our discussion about the Supreme Court tradition we had a couple of weeks ago. So what we're going to do here is we are going to... Have you guys seen Steve Schmidt on TV recently? Steve Schmidt. Now listen, it all changes in 2 weeks because these people are Republicans. But Steve Schmidt is the shredder. When they put him on TV, I mean, they would put... I would say Rick Wilson is more of the shredder, but they can't put him on TV without like a 10-second delay because he's dropping F-bombs. But Steve Schmidt, I see him on Deadline White House all the time with Nicole Wallace. And him and Nicole Wallace used to work in the Bush White House. They're Republican political operatives. That's what they are. They worked on the McCain-Palin campaign. And listen, those were back when politics was normal. Although, think about it for a second. When Sarah Palin was candidate for vice president, that's when politics were normal. Is that a sentence that you thought would be said ever in life? So anyhow, every time I'm watching Deadline White House and Steve Schmidt comes on, Nicole Wallace just says like, "Hey Steve, go. You know, just go on something." And, on, what day was this on? I want to say Friday. This is Friday. Because I'm recording the thread count Saturday morning. A little behind the scenes. Thread count gets recorded Saturday mornings usually. I usually gather up the tweets there, and then Sunday morning I polish up around it. Give you a little behind the curtain action here at the in the rugged lands of Shaolin. So anyhow, if you follow Steve Schmidt on Twitter, that's at Steve Schmidt S. It's at Steve Schmidt SES. And let's go into it. Whether Cesar Sayoc is sick or evil, or maybe both, or maybe. Let's start over. You know what the problem is? I knew that break was coming. That's first. I knew that break in the background music was coming. That's my excuse. But I did. This is my third cup of coffee. I got 2 shots of caffeine in it that I got from Wawa. And it's my mind is moving faster than my mouth. So let's get into it. Steve Schmidt. Whether Cesar Sayoc is sick or evil, or maybe a little bit of both, will become clearer in the days ahead. Certainly he was a loser who latched on to Trump's cult of personality and virtuous victimhood. His failures could be explained by the conspiracies and minorities who were stealing his entitlement. He fell in line because of his avenger, a dime store Mussolini, who assaults the institutions of our country, divides the American people, demagogues every issue, emboldens white supremacists, and lies thousands of times a year. They were not lies, though. Objective reality crumbled his mind. What was true was what his leader believed or said. That was enough. It was he, the billion-dollar anger and propaganda industry, was targeting. When Gingrich smirked into the camera, that it was all about Kavanaugh and the caravan, and it was the Sayocs of the world he was talking to. Trump ignited a passion in him to serve. He declined to be a soldier and a terrorist and strike back against the enemies and criminals and saboteurs who were stealing America. They were Trump's enemies. And so they were his. He would strike at the traitors, the enemies of the people. Trump winked at the violence. He knew Trump was right. There were good people on both sides in Charlottesville. The country will soon be invaded by the caravan. He decided to become an assassin. He would do what he had to do to be done to kill the enemies of the people. He would kill them by mailing bombs to them. All of them. All of Trump's enemies. He launched a massive assassination plot and tried to kill 2 former presidents and many more. It was not enough for him to drive around in a van festooned with images of Trump anymore. He heard the message. Trump incites and inflames. He is a tribal chief at war. He is as illiberal as his vile, corrupt, and inept. He created the dystopian alternate reality where this loser lived. This is reality. That is your boy, Steve Schmidt. And couldn't be further from the lies on that one. You know what I'm saying? Is this mic not turned towards me? The mail bomber, the MAGA bomber. That's what he is. He was driving around, and I know you've all seen this before. The truck with the NRA sticker. You know this truck. The pickup truck or the Jeep. It drives around your neighborhood. It might not even be, maybe it's not in your neighborhood, but you see it on the highway, you see it on the road. It starts with an NRA sticker, right? And it morphs. And every 4 years, every time there's, a new campaign, more bumper stickers get added. So you'll see, like, you know, NRA, then you'll see Dole 96, you know? Then you'll see No More War on Christmas. And eventually it's just an entire, it's like a collage of the wrecked beliefs of this, you know, these conservatives. You know, you'll see the Trump sticker, the Make America Great Again sticker, all that stuff. And you just laugh. Me and my girlfriend, because she lives in the woods. She lives in South Jersey. I keep saying the woods, but Steve Kornacki claims that that area, that district is turning blue. And that's good news to hear. But anyway, you always see this. Well, this guy, Caesar, the MAGA bomber, this guy's truck, it wasn't like bumper stickers. It was a shrine to Trump on the outside of the truck. Like, imagine, you know, you open up somebody's closet on all the cop shows, you know, they're looking for a stalker, and they open up the back closet, they see the shrine with all the pictures. It was like that to Trump on the outside of his van. Also, there were pictures of, like, Hillary Clinton and Obama with, like, you know, targets on them. Like, scope targets on them, as if to say, like, they're enemies. The one part that threw me off was Jill Stein, though. Because Jill Stein helped Trump get elected just as much as Comey and just as much as Russia and just as much as Hillary Clinton not going to those 3 states to campaign. Jill Stein had just as much to do with it. Jill Stein is Active Measures at work. Like, if Active Measures was a human being, Jill Stein would be it. It's insane. And I would have never thought. I mean, I get it. People have political disagreements. I think taxes should go here. You think taxes should go there. Okay, we have policy disagreements. But for your fearless leader, your Fuhrer, to get up on stage every night and talk about the media and locking up Hillary Clinton, the press is the enemy of the people, applauding that Congressman Gianforte, whatever his name is, body slamming the reporter from The Guardian. This is not normal times. And this isn't a lone, I mean, it may be a lone gunman thing, but it also could be a Sirhan thing. I mean, not in the direct way where the person was brainwashed in a room by the government. He just went to Trump rallies and he was brainwashed by the rhetoric. And he felt a call to action. And that is scary. And that is why you cannot have people like this in power. Because when you have people like this in power, things like this happen. And we cannot, as a country, as a nation, forget about this in a couple of days when Trump drops the N-bomb or something. This is important. And this is why the current leaders need to be removed from government. Let Trump go have his rallies without living at the White House. Did anybody tell him he's still allowed to have the rallies? Because that looks like his favorite part. Just do the rallies. Make $100,000 a speech. Go do that. Own Fox News. Do something. Do something that might, you know, help America. You know what would help America? If Trump and his legion of grifters and losers would exit the White House and no longer form the rising fascist authoritarian regime that is happening currently in our country. It's important to vote on November 6th. It's very important. It's just not a thing you can miss. Not this time. 100 million people won't vote. It's disgusting. And we're talking a lot. We talk a lot about we talk about 20 minutes about the MAGA bomber on the most recent episode of Dies in Your House that came out Thursday evening. You can check that out on Least Coast Radio. It is the same place you got this. So just go to the previous one. And because I had some strong feelings, they were screaming. Not much screaming, but just, a call to action for all of us. Me, you. We can't let people like this be the majority. We can't let people like the MAGA bomber also be the people whose political party of preference is in complete control of the government. That's not safe. And it's been proven this week. And shout outs to the NYPD and the bomb squad for catching the ones in New York. Shout outs to the Postal Service. Whatever way they screen packages, they got some of them before they got to their destination. Shout outs to the good puppers. The good bomb sniffing puppers. They were good puppers. Yes, they were. And they got it done. So, shout outs to all those people. We do rail against police when they kill unarmed black people. So, we give credit when it's due on the other side as well. Alright. That covers the Steve Schmidt portion of the thread count, but I got something else for you. Don't worry. You thought I was done, but I'm not. Do you guys follow Lincoln's Bible on Twitter? You should. Lincoln's Bible is a wealth of knowledge. And we're basically on the same theme here with the MAGA bomber. So, if you follow at Lincoln's Bible on Twitter, you can be up to date on all this so you'll know what I'm talking about when I go to read it. So, Lincoln's Bible always providing unique insight to the goings-on of what we may be missing. Avoiding... Lincoln's Bible avoids shiny objects and tries to focus on the truth. So, now that the song's going to restart, we can start this thread again. Here we go. Lincoln's Bible. Holding Trump accountable for his rhetoric, lies, and corruption is not a hateful or an act of social division. It's the absolute duty of the free press. Furthermore, mainstream media press must also now consider and investigate how and why Trump is so adept at Russian propaganda techniques. Consider that he's not some great brand genius. Consider he's a propagandist who has been trained in the art of whataboutism, aka false equivalency, weaponized projection, directly accuse the other of which you are guilty, aka conspiracy, and dehumanization, aka hate. All three of those techniques, false equivalency, conspiracy, and hate, are the cornerstones of Russian propaganda. And propaganda is a weapon of war. It is the weapon of choice for Russia, both the Russia of today and the former Soviet Union. They have perfected it, and they train their political operatives in it. They do. Considering the 30-plus year history of Russian intelligence operatives in Donald's life, living in his own buildings, we must consider that Trump has been trained in this art. I get that this conversation is uncomfortable for some in the mainstream media press. I watch them get bored and frustrated when folks like me keep bringing up the events of the presidency back to Russia. I get that. I get that they don't get it. That they can't or won't grasp the narrative. But we must not let this go. If we do, we are missing the real danger, the very real truths. behind the moment we're not just living through, but struggling to survive. Here's what the weapon of propaganda is designed to accomplish. A. Social division to the end point of violence. There's just no way now, today, that anyone could argue that the end point of Trump's rhetoric is violence. It will continue to happen because there is always an unstable individual out there who will take things that far. And with the rise of hate groups across our nation, the violence will continue to grow and be organized. Scary times indeed. The second goal of propaganda is distraction. That's the ticket for Trump and for Putin. This is where it gets real personal for the two of them. It's all about their money. When chaos is fermented by corrupt leaders we are distracted from seeing their corruption. That's how it works. That's the why of propaganda. Propaganda is generally released and accelerated by corrupt officials during times of investigations into their corruption, by law enforcement and by the press as links up to an article, Manafort's visiting Mueller more often these days. And also another article that is titled that the tax schemes article, the Trump tax schemes article that we went through a couple weeks ago, here on the Jay Parks podcast. Continuing. So, what do we do about this? First, we recognize what's going on, and that each of us, right, center, left, is an equal target of this weapon. This weapon only works when we tear each other apart and then dissolve in apathy. Second, read and learn about propaganda and other tactics of the Russian state, like the history and the use of organized crime, the mob, and the mechanics of active measures. Once you learn about it, you can pull yourself out of the outrage machine and help hold the corrupt accountable by adding your voice to the fight. Right now, many of us are just screaming into the machine. That doesn't work. Find journalists who are pursuing Trump's corruption, follow, support, and encourage them. Exposing the hate machine that Trump and the GOP built and thrive off of is part of that. Follow journalists like Luke O'Brien, and it's at Luke O'Brien. He's damn good at exposing the hate operation. Remember, that hate is propaganda. Exposing the mechanics of how the hate machine is how we dismantle the hate machine. Third, and most important, reject those, quote, journalists and news outlets that are profiting from off the outrage. They are enabling and enhancing the propaganda. Reject access journalism. I'm going to add this here. Jay Parks op-ed. Looking at you, Maggie Haberman. When you see the press pool only chasing shiny objects or fluffing themselves on palace intrigue, reject that shit. Demand to know about the corruption. Stay on the money. Do you really think all of this chaos and violence and hate is about anything else? Wake up, America. We're being swindled by professional criminals who control the powers of nation states. That's Lincoln's Bible. Basically breaking down why we do the thread count here on the Jay Parks podcast. Propaganda. Active measures. These are all tools, and these aren't new things. This is Cold War stuff. It's just the Republicans decided that they no longer feared Russia. They decided Russia was no longer a problem. And when you watch all the historical documentaries, it's crazy because it's the reverse. It's like the Democrats were like, yo, communism, chill. No, it's like the Democrats were like, yo, Russia's alright. And the Republicans were like, yo, communism, chill. And now it's like the Republicans are like, Russia's freaking lit. And the Democrats are like, dude, you good, fam? I don't think they actually said it's lit and it's good, fam, but basically that's the outline of how propaganda works. Courtesy of Lincoln's Bible, and you can go follow him on the Twitter machine at Lincoln's Bible. And also follow Steve Schmidt at Steve Schmidt SES. And I assume the SES stands for Sega Entertainment System. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Or maybe it's his middle initial is an E. Either way, be on the lookout for the propaganda. And let's see what else is going on here on the Twitters. Alright, I say we get to one more thread here before we get up on out of here. This coming from our good buddy, Greg Olear, author of Dirty Rubles, An Introduction to Trump Russia. It's basically a primer. He's a key component of the thread count and a listener of the podcast when he has time. So, we've got a little thread. It's titled, I think people are underrating just how colossally screwed Trump will be if/when the Dems win the House. Now, we're going to preface this with this is the heart of it right here. There's a lot of noise going on in the world. There's a lot of noise going on in terms of, you know, political rhetoric. There's a lot of noise, a lot of news. There's a lot of big things going on. And there's a lot of answers that we need as Americans. But nothing is more important than what is happening on November 6th. And this is a call to action right now that you should shut your TV, shut your cable news, stop watching commercials, binge things on Netflix for the next week. I got some suggestions. I'll give you the suggestions after this thread, because this thread will finish us up for today, and then we'll get up on out of here. So, okay. Again, voting is important. Let's go to Greg Olear. People are underrating just how colossally screwed Trump will be if/when the Dems win control of the House. All of the committees will be chaired by Democrats. Schiff at Intelligence, Nadler at Judiciary, Cummings at Oversight, Waters at Financial Services. These committees have the power to investigate, serve subpoenas, and to keep the spotlight on the crimes of Trump and his cronies. For example, the Commerce Secretary and a horrible human being who looks like the melted-faced Nazi from Raiders of the Lost Ark will suddenly find himself in a world of trouble, and this stuff will no longer fly. And there is all sorts of ethic violations this is linked up to that Wilbur Ross is currently violating. 3. Nadler has not forgotten about Brett Kavanaugh, and Mark Judge will be called to testify about that beach week night. Kavanaugh can be impeached too, and will. Capital letters. I can't wait. End capital letters. To watch Adam Schiff systematically destroy. It will be like in Pac-Man, where Pac-Man eats the magic dot and can go chase around the ghosts. The Putin asset Nunes will wind up in prison or in exile in Baku. In short, the Congress that has abrogated its duty to check presidential power is a GOP Congress. A Dem Congress will have no qualms about draining the swamp for reals and fulfilling its constitutional obligations. Then, there's the matter of impeachment. Spoiler alert, no matter what they say on the stump campaign trail, a Dem Congress will impeach Trump on any one of a dozen potential charges. It takes a simple majority vote per charge to move the process along. After the House votes to impeach Trump on X number of charges, the Senate conducts an investigation and holds a trial. All caps, there is no way in hell Trump will ever let that happen. Allowing himself to testify under oath when he knows he's guilty AF? That's as fuck for the kids that don't know. For the adults that don't know. The kids are using AF as fuck. No, Trump will resign, as Nixon did, before it gets that far. It's the only way he can control the narrative. By then, Mueller's report may well be done, and Trump's law indicted. The week ahead is going to be batshit. Trump is well aware that his only chance now is to flood the zone with crap and hope voters stay away from the polls. Because if the House flips, Trump is done. The Senate would be nice, but isn't necessary. So, eyes on the prize, folks. Hashtag vote blue. Because if we flip enough seats, the blue will wash away the orange stain on our democracy. 10 more days, folks. Get out and make it so. Because the future of our republic depends on it. End. P.S. Please keep all of the defeatist talk off of my feed. All it does is make people lethargic by making them feel depressed and hopeless, which is exactly what Putin wants. And that was, we're 10 days out from the 27th when Greg Olear posted this thread. That's been one of my best follows on Twitter. So let's discuss that for a second. We have an election coming up. It's a very important election. It's one of the most important elections. It is the most important election of our lives. And I understand that we've had elections before that have, this is the most important election of your life. Technically, they all are, because they all carry the weight of the future. Like, no matter what the consequence of, Richard Nixon being president that year when they shot Bobby Kennedy, it's not as important as this one, because that one already happened and we already got through that, and that part is over, that part of life. So that's what we mean by this is the most important election of our lives. And listen, it's a different tactic this week. On recent episodes of Dies in Your House, on recent episodes of the J-Porks podcast, I've been, not defeatist talk, but I've been getting loud, getting frustrated, screaming, being an impassioned. I'm not doing that today. Because if you don't know by now that this needs to be stopped immediately, before top Democrats got bombs sent to them, before a synagogue got shot up, before all that, if you don't think it's important that checks and balances exist, then let's stop teaching it in school. Then let's build a new, is this going to be an oligarchy? Is that what we're going to have? America is already not as much of a democracy as you think it is. Do we want that to continue? We need to go vote. There are more Democrats than Republicans. Full stop. We can win if we just show up. Now, maybe you say to yourself, hey, Jay, I think that this country should have Election Day be a national holiday. Hey, Jay, I think Election Day should be on Sunday or on Saturday on a weekend where people aren't working. Hey, Jay, I think there are ways to get more people to vote. That's cool. But here's the thing. I agree with all of those things. I agree with reformatting the entire way we do elections. Absolutely. But here's the thing about that. There are two parties. There are Democrats, progressives, liberals, and there are conservatives, Republicans, racists, fascists, assholes. Now, the party that wants more people to exercise their civic duty in voting is the Democrats. So if you're somebody that wants more people to vote, if you want easier access to voting, if you want your voting district to not be gerrymandered and be shaped in some odd way, like, you ever see the shapes of the districts? And listen, I'm not Steve Kornacki, I'm not the guy from Cook Political Report, I'm not any of those guys. I'm just saying this. Look at a map of congressional districts. Okay? The blue and the red. Now look at the shapes. Now don't you wonder why they're such oddly shaped? They're shaped that way because Republicans have made a concerted effort to harness the vote from people that won't vote Republican. And that's their main goal. Brian Kemp said it. The guy running for governor in Georgia, running against Stacey Abrams, he said that the biggest obstacle for their campaign is people exercising their right to vote. Is that not insane? Is that not the sickest thing you've ever heard? Republicans want to suppress the vote. Republicans don't like voting rights. They make Native Americans have IDs. First of all, anybody that needs a voter ID, when we're in America, everybody has an actual ID. You're telling me your driver's license is not good enough? You need a special voter ID? They mailed me, I don't know, I think it's a voter ID they mailed me. They mailed me a piece of paper. It says my name, it says my party affiliation. Maybe that was just for the primaries. But like, purging voters in Georgia from the voter registration, predominantly black voters, making Native Americans who live on a reservation and don't have an actual street address, they have a post office box for their mail, changing the voter ID laws to make it so they need to get addresses on their voter IDs, or their voter IDs aren't valid. Spoiler, Native Americans are more prone to vote Democrat. Spoiler, in Georgia, black people are most likely to vote Democrat. What's next? How are they going to make women not vote next? I mean, this is what has happened to America. And what we need to do as a nation is put a stop to it. It needs to stop. And it needs to stop immediately. We have a couple of days. And this is my plea to you before we get up on out of here. My plea to you as a voter is this. These midterm campaigns have been going on for almost a year already. They've been going on since 2016. Since November 2016. If you don't have an idea of who you want to vote for by now, then, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But you should, because in this political climate, it seems like a lot of people are choosing sides, very vastly. They're not listening to the other side. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to ignore the news this week. Just set the calendar, November 6th. You go vote. And we take it back. And that's step one. Because there's an old Chinese proverb that says, 1,000-mile journey begins with one step. And on November 6th, we have to take that step. And listen, if you've been a news junkie, over the past couple of years, and you say, Jay, I'm addicted, I can't get out of it, there's a lot of good stuff on Netflix for you to watch. If you're like a political news junkie, there are tons of political documentaries you can watch on Netflix. I'll make some suggestions right now. Bobby Kennedy for President. It's a 4-part piece. It is excellent. And, I'm earlier this year, this time last year, I was watching Hardball, making fun of Chris Matthews' obsession with Bobby Kennedy just because he wrote a book on Bobby Kennedy. No, Bobby Kennedy was a visionary, and the day he was shot was a downward spiral of America. One of the many. You should check that out. It's I'm not talking, it's 4-part series. It's a 4-part thing, but like the first 3 are Bobby Kennedy alive, and there's no like Sirhan stuff. So it's not like, oh Jay, I don't want to watch a conspiracy thing. It's not, I swear. I watched JFK yesterday. Actually, that is it's not that. Because, I had an extra 5, and I've already started the not paying attention to the news. This week I'm going to my girlfriend's. We're going to do Halloween, get some candy that I can't eat because my teeth hate me. What did I watch? There's Oliver Stone's Untold History of the United States. That's like 12 episodes, each 1 hour. I watched that. I've watched that like twice already. I watch everything twice. Very interesting look at, how Oliver Stone sees the world. How Oliver Stone sees history. It is the same guy that did a movie about the Doors, even though at the time where the Doors were popular, Oliver Stone was like in Vietnam, so he wasn't here to experience the Doors in real time, but he had a movie about it. That's neither here nor there. It's an interesting series, The Untold History of the United States. There's a lot of political stuff on. There's a lot of political documentaries. Making of a Presidency, JFK. That goes from like before his life. And listen, maybe you're like, Jay, I want to get off politics for a week. I know who I'm voting for. I'm voting Dem because I'm smart. Give me something entertaining. Okay. Daredevil. Season 3 of Daredevil just came on Netflix. I don't know. The first 2 seasons weren't that enthralling to me, but season 3 is really good so far. I've watched 3 episodes. I'm up to episode 3. And if you need more incentive to watch Daredevil, if you say, Jay, I don't want to just start Daredevil right now, watch The Punisher. Have you seen The Punisher? If people haven't seen The Punisher, again, these are things on Netflix. Because to be honest, I got Spectrum and there's nothing ever on TV. And I'm sure your cable system is the same way. You have 1,000 channels and there's nothing on. But you got Netflix, you got Hulu, and you got BitTorrent sites, and there's plenty of stuff on the internet you choose to watch it. So there's that. That should be enough stuff. Well, watch some Halloween movies. And then, once November starts, and hit me up on Twitter at JPorks and ask me, hey Jay, I've seen all that stuff. Give me more suggestions. I will. Because there is no thought. There is no more debate on what needs to happen. November 6th. We have hardline Republicans like Max Boot saying that they're going in and voting Democrat down the line. You have to be a patriot. Be on the right side of history. Even if it means voting on the left for once in your life. Okay. I'm getting up on out of here, but before I do, let me give you the list of websites you need to go to help keep me in business. First of all, I would definitely appreciate it if you went to patreon.com/jporks. We got some stuff there. If you go to the tiers, you get some personalized artwork, bonus content, even ways to interact with me on a personal level. Read about it. Become a Least Coast Radiohead. Patreon.com/jporks. Also, I have a new website, leastcoastradio.weebly.com. I'll tell you what happened. I'm mad at GoDaddy, and my JPorks domain isn't working. So, I built a Least Coast Radio site. There's nothing. It's just built. There's no actual content there yet. But it looks pretty cool, so I would go there. leastcoastradio.weebly.com. Excuse me. What else we got going on? ContentConfessions.com. Yo, speaking of that, ContentConfessions.com. Live music, news, and reviews for the fans by the fans. And specializing in live music, we've got an interview up at ContentConfessions.com by my buddy Miz in California from Tarantula Man Photography. He's a featured contributor here at ContentConfessions.com. Really the only thing keeping this thing alive right now, because if it was just relied on shows I go to, we would be in trouble, because I have trouble getting out to shows these days. But we have an interview with Robert Berry of the band 3 up at Content Confessions. The band 3 had Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer in it, of Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. There's an interview with this guy at ContentConfessions.com. Who knew? I was scrolling through. That's my website? Cool. How awesome is that? Okay. So, ContentConfessions.com, stuff like that. And every week, we have some music headlines. Which, again, we might... Listen, the format's going to change after the midterms. After the midterms, the format for the JPorks podcast is going to change. And therefore, we will be tackling more music. Like, we'll talk about Cake's new single. You know, we'll talk about Pixies going on tour with Weezer next summer, announcing it already before Christmas. You know, we'll talk about stuff like that. But, you know, until we get back to talking a lot of music on the JPorks podcast, you know, Antiquiet. Antiquiet.com is your source for quality when it comes to things in the music scene. And they got a podcast too. And even though I've been doing it longer, they have a better one than I do. Is it fact that everyone has a better everything than I do? It's cool. I really don't care, because the only thing I want to have is a Democratic House of Representatives. And we really need to get out there and vote. 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 All right. Till next week, Wacky Weed and Warren Zevon. Resist, remove, and fight for recreational. And we do that by voting. Vote blue, November 6th. End this nightmare. A long journey starts with a single step. And that's your vote for a progressive cause on November 6th. Late.